I never thought a simple phone call could shatter my entire world. There I was holding my 2-year-old twins, Emma and Ethan, in the hospital emergency room, just learning that my appendix had burst and I needed immediate surgery. The doctor said I could die without the operation within hours. My first instinct was to call my parents, the only family I had left after my divorce 6 months ago. They lived just 20 minutes away. Surely they would rush over to help their daughter and grandchildren in this life-threatening emergency. I was so wrong. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Please let me know in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about family. Now let me take you back to that moment when I discovered just how truly alone I really was. My name is Alexa, and at 28 years old, I thought I had my life somewhat figured out. I was working as an accounting clerk at a small firm in Denver, Colorado, trying to make ends meet as a single mother. Emma and Ethan, my beautiful twins, were the light of my life despite the challenges we faced every single day. Their father had walked out on us 6 months earlier after I discovered his affair with a coworker. He moved to another state and rarely sent child support, leaving me to handle everything alone. Every morning started at 5:30 a.m. I would get the twins ready, drop them off with my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, and rush to work. The daycare costs were astronomical at $800 per month for both children, so I was grateful that Mrs. Patterson, a sweet 70-year-old widow, offered to watch them for a more reasonable rate. She lived next door and had become like a grandmother to Emma and Ethan. Her kindness was a stark contrast to the coldness I received from my actual family. My parents, Margaret and Harold, both in their late 50s, lived in the same city, but might as well have been on another planet. Since the twins were born, they had made it crystal clear that grandparent duties were not something they signed up for. Margaret, my mother, worked part-time at a department store and spent most of her free time shopping or planning outings with my younger sister, Jessica. Harold, my father, was a retired postal worker who devoted his days to golf and television. They both acted as if helping with their grandchildren was an enormous burden that disrupted their perfectly planned retirement. Despite their attitude, I found myself constantly supporting them financially. Every month, I paid their cell phone bill at $100. When Harold's car needed repairs 2 months ago, I paid the $800 mechanic bill. Margaret frequently called, asking for grocery money or gas money, usually $200 to $300 at a time. I always said yes, because they were my parents, and I had been raised to respect and care for family no matter what. Looking back now, I realize how one-sided that relationship truly was. Jessica, my 25-year-old sister, was the golden child who could do no wrong. She worked at a boutique, lived in a trendy apartment downtown, and spent her weekends at clubs and concerts. Our parents adored her carefree lifestyle and often bragged about her latest adventures to anyone who would listen. She had never been married, had no children, and seemingly no responsibilities beyond herself. Margaret and Harold frequently took her on trips and bought her expensive gifts while I struggled to afford diapers and formula for the twins. The contrast in treatment was painful, but I accepted it as normal. I told myself that Jessica deserved their attention because she was younger and needed guidance. I convinced myself that as their responsible daughter, it was my job to take care of everyone else. This mindset had been programmed into me since childhood, where I was always expected to be the mature one who sacrificed for the family good. My daily routine was exhausting but manageable. After work, I would pick up Emma and Ethan from Mrs. Patterson's house, come home to cook dinner, play with them for a short while, give them baths, read bedtime stories, and then collapse into bed around 10 p.m., only to wake up at midnight, 2 a.m., and 5 a.m. for various toddler needs. On weekends, I would do laundry, grocery shopping, and household chores, while trying to give the twins some fun activities at the local park or library. 3 days before the emergency, I started experiencing mild abdominal pain. I assumed it was stress-related since I had been working overtime to cover an unexpected car repair bill. The pain felt like a dull ache that came and went throughout the day. I took some over-the-counter pain medication and tried to ignore it, thinking it would pass on its own. I could not afford to miss work or pay for a doctor's visit for something that seemed minor. The second day, the pain intensified, but I still managed to function. I dropped the twins off with Mrs. Patterson and went to work as usual. During my lunch break, I called Margaret to check in, and she spent 20 minutes complaining about how tired she was from her 4-hour shift at the department store. She did not ask how I was feeling or how the grandchildren were doing. This was typical of our conversations, where I provided emotional support while receiving none in return. On the third morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to excruciating pain in my lower right abdomen. The agony was unlike anything I had ever experienced, sharp and stabbing, with waves of nausea. Emma and Ethan were crying in their cribs, needing breakfast and diaper changes, but I could barely stand upright. I managed to call Mrs. Patterson, who immediately came over and insisted on driving us to the emergency room. She took charge of the twins while I doubled over in pain, unable to think clearly about anything except the fire burning in my abdomen. At Denver General Hospital, the emergency room was bustling with activity. Mrs. Patterson carried Ethan while I held Emma, both children confused and frightened by the sudden change in routine. The registration process felt endless as pain shot through my body with every movement. A nurse finally called my name after what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Dr. Rodriguez, a kind woman in her 40s, examined me thoroughly and ordered immediate blood work and a CT scan. Emma and Ethan clung to me, sensing something was seriously wrong. They kept asking for juice and crackers, their usual snack time requests, but I could barely focus on their needs through the haze of pain. Mrs. Patterson did her best to distract them with songs and silly faces, but they wanted their mother. The CT scan results came back quickly, and Dr. Rodriguez's expression became grave. She sat down next to my hospital bed and explained that my appendix had not only become inflamed, but had actually ruptured. The infection was spreading through my abdominal cavity, creating a life-threatening situation called peritonitis. Without immediate surgical intervention, I could develop sepsis and potentially die within hours. We need to get you into surgery within the next 2 hours. Dr. Rodriguez explained, her voice gentle but urgent. The procedure will take approximately 3 to 4 hours, followed by several hours in recovery. You will need someone to care for your children during this time and sign consent forms as your emergency contact. The reality hit me like a freight train. I was facing potentially life-threatening surgery, and I had 2 scared toddlers who needed immediate care. Mrs. Patterson, despite her good intentions, was 70 years old and not physically able to handle both children for an extended period. I knew I had to call my parents. Surely this emergency would override their usual reluctance to help with the twins. With shaking hands, I dialed Margaret's number while Emma and Ethan played quietly with some toys Mrs. Patterson had brought from home. The phone rang 4 times before my mother answered with an annoyed tone, as if I had interrupted something important. "What is it, Alexa? I am getting ready for something special today." I explained the situation as calmly as possible, describing the ruptured appendix, the urgent need for surgery, and my desperate need for someone to watch Emma and Ethan. I expected immediate concern for my health and an offer to rush to the hospital. Instead, Margaret's response was cold and calculating. "Oh, that is quite inconvenient timing," she said, as if I had chosen to have a medical emergency. "Your father and I have tickets to see Elton John tonight. Jessica bought them for us 6 months ago as an early anniversary gift. They cost $300 each, and you know how much I have always loved Elton John. This might be his final tour, so it could be my last chance to see him perform live." I sat in stunned silence, processing what I had just heard. My mother was more concerned about a concert than her daughter's life-threatening emergency. I tried to remain calm and explain again how serious the situation was. "Mom, I could die if I do not have this surgery immediately. The doctor said the infection is spreading. I need you to come watch Emma and Ethan for just a few hours while I am in the operating room. Margaret sighed heavily, as if I was being unreasonable. Can you not find someone else? Maybe that neighbor woman, or hire a babysitter. I am sure there is someone available who does not have important plans already made. Your father and I have been looking forward to this concert for months. We even bought new outfits and made dinner reservations at that expensive restaurant downtown. The selfishness in her voice was astounding, but I held on to hope that she would come to her senses. I tried a different approach, appealing to her role as a grandmother. Mom, these are your grandchildren. Emma and Ethan need their family right now. They are scared and confused, and I am terrified that something might happen to me during surgery. Please, I am begging you to help us. But Margaret had already made up her mind. You should have thought about these situations before you decided to have children, Alexa. Being a parent means being prepared for emergencies. I raised my children already, and now it is time for me to enjoy my retirement. You need to figure this out on your own, like an adult. She hung up the phone, leaving me staring at the device in disbelief. My own mother had just refused to help me during a life-threatening medical emergency because of concert tickets. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I was experiencing. Desperate and running out of time, I called Harold's number, hoping my father would show more compassion than my mother had. He answered on the second ring, and I could hear a golf tournament playing on the television in the background. Dad, I am in the hospital and need emergency surgery. My appendix ruptured and I could die without immediate treatment. I need you or Mom to come watch Emma and Ethan while I am in the operating room. Harold listened to my explanation without interrupting, but his response was even more devastating than Margaret's had been. Alexa, you have always been dramatic and created unnecessary problems for this family. He said, his voice cold and dismissive. If you were a responsible mother, you would have emergency plans in place for situations like this. Why should your mother and I have to drop our plans because you failed to prepare properly? I tried to interrupt and explain that no one plans for their appendix to rupture, but Harold continued his lecture. Ever since you got divorced and became a single mother, you have been nothing but a burden on this family. You constantly need money, you always have some crisis or emergency, and now you expect us to cancel our evening because of your poor planning. Your mother has been looking forward to this Elton John concert for months. Jessica spent a lot of money on those tickets, and we are not going to waste them because you cannot handle your responsibilities. The words hit me like physical blows. My own father was calling me a burden and blaming me for having a medical emergency. The man who was supposed to protect and love me unconditionally was prioritizing a concert over my life. Dad, please, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. I could die. Emma and Ethan could lose their mother tonight. Does that not matter to you at all? Harold's final words before hanging up the phone were the cruelest I had ever heard from a parent. You are nothing but a nuisance and a burden to this family. You chose to have those children, so deal with the consequences yourself. Do not call us again today. The line went dead, and I sat in the hospital bed feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. Emma and Ethan were playing quietly nearby, completely unaware that their grandparents had just abandoned them in their time of greatest need. Mrs. Patterson looked at me with sympathy and anger, having overheard enough of the conversation to understand what had happened. The reality of my situation hit me with crushing force. I was facing major surgery with no family support, and I had 2 young children who needed immediate care. The surgical team was preparing for my operation, and time was running out quickly. Emma had started crying because she was hungry, and Ethan was asking repeatedly when we were going home. I felt helpless and desperate, but I knew I had to find a solution fast. Through my tears, I remembered a business card tucked in my wallet from a premium nanny service that provided emergency childcare. I had picked up the card at a parenting expo months earlier, but never imagined I would need such an expensive service. The rate was $50 per hour, which meant 4 hours of surgery plus recovery time would cost me at least $300. That money was supposed to buy groceries and diapers for the rest of the month, but I had no other choice. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number and explained my emergency situation. The dispatcher was professional and compassionate, assuring me that they could have a qualified nanny at the hospital within 30 minutes. Madison, a certified childcare professional with 10 years of experience, would stay with Emma and Ethan for as long as needed. I provided my credit card information and signed the necessary forms, knowing I was spending money I could not afford but having no alternative. When Madison arrived, she was exactly what I needed during this crisis. A warm woman in her 30s with a gentle demeanor and obvious experience with toddlers. She immediately connected with Emma and Ethan, introducing herself with a cheerful voice and pulling out coloring books and small toys from her emergency kit. The twins were initially hesitant, but quickly warmed up to her kind nature. As the surgical team prepared me for the operating room, I gave Madison detailed instructions about the twins' routines, favorite foods, and comfort items. She listened attentively and assured me that Emma and Ethan would be well cared for throughout the procedure. Mrs. Patterson stayed for a while to help with the transition before heading home, promising to check on us later. The surgery was more complicated than expected due to the extent of the infection. Dr. Rodriguez later told me that my appendix had been perforated for several hours, allowing bacteria to spread throughout my abdominal cavity. They had to thoroughly clean the infected area and place drains to prevent further complications. The 4-hour procedure extended to nearly 5 hours, during which Madison entertained the twins, fed them meals, and even managed to get them to nap in a quiet corner of the family waiting area. When I woke up in recovery, groggy from anesthesia but alive, my first thought was of Emma and Ethan. Madison appeared at my bedside with a reassuring smile, reporting that both children had been well behaved and were currently sleeping peacefully in the chairs beside my bed. She had managed everything perfectly, from diaper changes to feeding them dinner from the hospital cafeteria. As I lay in that hospital bed during the quiet hours of recovery, something fundamental shifted inside me. The betrayal from my parents had initially left me devastated, but as the shock wore off, it was replaced by a cold, determined anger. I realized that I had been enabling their selfish behavior for years, always making excuses for their lack of support while sacrificing my own needs and my children's needs to maintain their comfort. Using the hospital's Wi-Fi on my phone, I began taking action that would change everything. I logged into my bank account and reviewed every transaction from the past year, documenting exactly how much money I had given my parents. The total was staggering $4,200 in 8 months. That money could have paid for better daycare, healthier food for the twins, or been saved for actual emergencies like the one we were currently facing. My first action was canceling the automatic payment for my parents' cell phone bill. With a few clicks, I removed my credit card from their account and set it so their service would be disconnected within 24 hours unless they paid the bill themselves. Next, I called the bank to cancel the supplementary credit card I had given them for emergencies, which they had been using for restaurant meals and shopping trips. The feeling of taking control was empowering and liberating. For years, I had felt obligated to support parents who showed me no love or respect in return. They had taken advantage of my sense of duty while treating me like an inconvenience. But their refusal to help during my medical emergency had finally opened my eyes to the toxic nature of our relationship. I spent the next hour changing passwords on every streaming service, online account, and subscription that my parents had been using. They had been enjoying Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Spotify on my accounts while contributing nothing to the household expenses that supported these services. I also removed them from my health insurance beneficiary list and updated my emergency contacts to include Mrs. Patterson instead of my parents. By the time visiting hours ended that evening, I had systematically cut off every form of financial support I had been providing to Margaret and Harold. The process was methodical and final, representing a complete break from years of one-sided generosity. I felt no guilt or regret, only relief that I would no longer be taken advantage of by people who clearly did not value our family relationship. Madison stayed with us through the night sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chair, while Emma and Ethan curled up on the narrow bed beside me. Her dedication and professionalism during this crisis showed me what real care and support looked like. She charged fairly for her services and provided excellent care without making me feel guilty or burdensome for needing help. The next morning, I was discharged with strict instructions to rest and recover for several weeks. Madison helped me get the twins home safely and even stayed for an additional hour to help me get settled. Her kindness and competence during our family's darkest moment contrasted sharply with the coldness and selfishness my own parents had shown. As I tucked Emma and Ethan into their beds that night, I made a silent promise that they would never experience the kind of conditional love and emotional manipulation that I had endured from my parents. Our little family would be built on genuine care, respect, and support for one another, not on obligation and guilt. The days following my surgery brought an unexpected sense of peace and clarity. Emma and Ethan adjusted well to our new routine, and Mrs. Patterson increased her help while I recovered. She brought homemade soup and watched the twins for several hours each day, refusing to accept extra payment because, as she said, that is what real family does for each other. I also reached out to a support group for single mothers that met at the local community center every Wednesday evening. Sarah, a nurse practitioner with a 4-year-old son, became my first real friend in years. Christina, a teacher with twin girls, slightly older than Emma and Ethan, offered practical advice about managing toddlers while working full-time. These women understood the challenges I faced because they lived similar experiences every day. Through this group, I discovered a network of mothers who supported each other through babysitting exchanges, shared meals, and emotional encouragement. It was everything a family should be, but mine had never been. These women celebrated each other's successes, offered help during difficulties, and treated each other's children with genuine love and care. 2 weeks after my surgery, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, I was playing with Emma and Ethan in our small backyard when I heard the doorbell ring. Looking through the window, I saw Margaret, Harold, and Jessica standing on my front porch. Margaret was carrying a bouquet of grocery store flowers, and Harold had his hands shoved in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. Jessica stood slightly behind them, checking her phone as usual. I took a deep breath and opened the door, but did not invite them inside. The 3 of them looked surprised by my cold reception, apparently expecting me to welcome them with open arms, despite their behavior 2 weeks earlier. "Alexa, honey, we came to see how you are feeling after your surgery," Margaret said, attempting a warm tone that felt completely artificial. "We have been so worried about you and the babies." The hypocrisy in her words was astounding. They had been worried enough to refuse helping during my medical emergency, but now wanted to play the role of caring family members. I remained in the doorway, blocking their entrance to my home. "I am recovering well, thank you," I replied calmly. "The twins and I are doing fine without any help from our family." Harold shifted uncomfortably and finally spoke up. "Look, maybe we were a bit harsh during your emergency, but you have to understand that we had important plans that could not be changed. Those concert tickets were expensive, and we thought you would figure something out like you always do." His attempt at an apology was weak and self-serving, focused more on justifying their actions than expressing genuine remorse. I could see that they still did not understand the magnitude of their betrayal or the permanent damage it had caused to our relationship. "You chose a concert over your daughter's life," I said simply. "That choice showed me exactly where I stand in this family, and I have accepted that reality." Margaret started crying, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue she had conveniently prepared. "But we are family, Alexa. Family forgives and moves on. We miss seeing Emma and Ethan, and they need their grandparents in their lives." I looked at this woman who had given birth to me but had never truly been a mother in any meaningful sense. Her tears felt manipulative rather than genuine, designed to make me feel guilty for protecting myself and my children from further hurt. "Emma and Ethan need people in their lives who will be there for them unconditionally," I replied. People who will not abandon them during emergencies because of entertainment plans. You have proven that you are not those people. Jessica finally looked up from her phone and joined the conversation. Come on, Alexa, you are being dramatic about this whole thing. They went to one concert. It is not like someone died or anything. Her dismissive attitude revealed the same selfishness and lack of empathy that characterized our entire family dynamic. To Jessica, my medical emergency was just drama, and my parents' refusal to help was perfectly reasonable because it inconvenienced their social plans. You are right, Jessica, I said calmly. No one died, but something did die that night. The illusion that I had a family who cared about me died in that hospital room when Mom and Dad chose Elton John over their daughter and grandchildren. Harold made one final attempt to salvage the situation. We are here now offering to help and be involved in the kids' lives. That should count for something. I looked at this man who had called me a nuisance and burden during the worst moment of my life, and I felt nothing but pity for his complete lack of self-awareness. Where were you when I needed you most? Where were you when your grandchildren were scared and confused in a hospital waiting room? You made your priorities clear that night, and they did not include us. I stepped back and began closing the door. Please do not come back. Emma, Ethan, and I are building a life surrounded by people who actually care about us. There is no room in that life for people who see us as burdens. As I closed the door, I heard Margaret calling my name and promising to change, but her words felt empty and desperate. Through the window, I watched them walk back to their car, defeated and confused by my refusal to accept their half-hearted attempt at reconciliation. 6 months later, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. Emma and Ethan were thriving in their new environment of unconditional love and support. They had formed strong bonds with Mrs. Patterson, whom they called Grandma Pat, and with several of the children in our single mothers support group. I had completed an online certification program in advanced accounting and received a promotion at work that increased my salary by 30%. The money I was no longer giving to my parents allowed us to move to a better apartment with a small yard and safer neighborhood. For the first time in years, I was building a savings account and planning for our future, instead of just surviving day to day. The support network I had built replaced everything my biological family had failed to provide. Sarah watched Emma and Ethan when I had to work late, and I returned the favor when her son was sick. Christina shared her experiences navigating the school system and helped me prepare for the twins' eventual enrollment in preschool. Mrs. Patterson became the loving grandparent figure my children deserved, celebrating their milestones and offering wisdom gained from raising her own successful children. Most importantly, I had learned to value myself and set healthy boundaries with toxic people. I no longer felt guilty for refusing to support people who showed me no love or respect. I had discovered that real family is not defined by blood relations, but by the people who choose to love and support you through both good times and bad. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who consistently hurt you, even if those people are family members. Emma and Ethan now have a mother who is stronger, more confident, and better able to provide for their emotional and physical needs because I stopped allowing others to drain my resources and energy. The experience taught me that self-respect and personal boundaries are not selfish, but necessary for building a healthy life. By removing toxic influences from our lives, I created space for genuine relationships based on mutual care and respect. As I tucked Emma and Ethan into their beds each night in our cozy new home, I felt grateful for the difficult lesson that had ultimately freed us from a cycle of dysfunction and emotional manipulation. We had found our real family among friends and neighbors who chose to love us, and that love was more valuable than any biological connection could ever be. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Have you found your real family among friends who chose to love you unconditionally? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your story might help someone else who is struggling with similar difficult family relationships. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences about finding strength in unexpected places. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve better treatment from the people in their lives. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. I wish you all the courage to choose the love and respect you truly deserve.